I'm Frank Sesno, your host on Planet Forward, coming to you from our studios at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And we're talking today to someone, if you've been hanging around Planet Forward at all, you've probably seen him, and you've seen his blogs, and you've seen his videos. He's Miles Grant. Hi, Miles.
Hi, thanks for
He is the communications manager and blogger at the National Wildlife Federation. And we've really enjoyed your videos. And on a serious note, you just came back from the spill in the Gulf. What did you see?
Went down to a little town called Venice, Louisiana. The guy down there told me our town is dependent on two things, fishing and oil, and one is about to kill the other. No oil on shore while I was down there, but
You didn't see anything from the shore. You couldn't tell
from the
anything.
shore, no. But you definitely had a sense of dread among the people there. They knew what was out there, and they knew it wasn't going to stop anytime soon, and that it was only a matter of time before it impacted their lives.
You hooked up with a fishing boat captain. Interesting video. Tell us about him and what you saw with him.
His name's Captain Peace Marble. He used to be a Greenpeace activist and became a fishing boat captain.
Young guy.
Middle-aged guy. He'd started
He
a
looks
family.
young in the video, I gotta tell you.
Needed to settle down a little bit, is what he told me, and that's why he got into the fishing boat business, that he could just come out of Venice and not be globetrotting as much as he had been. But we found a guy who was willing to take us as close to the spill itself as we could possibly get. And by spill, I mean the Deepwater Horizon site. We got within about 10 miles.
And what'd you see?
Well, we saw further out, we saw dispersed oil, and that's that sort of red, orange, rusty colored oil. It's oxidizing from the iron in the oil. When that clumps up, what the danger to wildlife is a lot of the small species, the shrimp, the bait fish, mistake that for the seaweed that they use as cover. So they hide under that. They hide in the shadows. That attracts some of the bigger fish like the mahi-mahi, and that attracts some of the even bigger fish like sharks, attracts dolphins and pilot whales. As we got closer to the site itself, we actually got onto the oil slick. Very eerie feeling. The water is a little bit calmer, it's a little bit more shiny. Very thin layer of oil on it. We got to within about 10 miles of the spill itself, and our captain said, you know what guys, I don't feel like getting dispersant dropped on me from planes. Let's stop here, get a good look, and turn around.
What were you thinking, and what was going through your mind as you were going out there and seeing all this stuff?
You know, the number one reaction that I have from being out there is that the dispersant smells more toxic than the oil does.
Really?
It's just an overpowering, toxic, noxious smell. Being on the oil itself, you certainly smell a vague smell of motor oil. It feels a little bit heavy. You start to feel a little bit sick to your stomach after a while. But that dispersant, from us at the National Wildlife Federation's perspective, is a grave concern. You know, we know it's going to keep the oil off the shore itself, which is a benefit, but it's sinking the oil into the water column. Frankly, we don't know what those side effects are going to be.
What did you see, or what did you become most aware of with respect to wildlife out there?
You know, the first thing that I saw myself was a baby turtle that had been covered in oil. And when you see a turtle and it's a red color, you know, obviously something's wrong. It had been struggling in the oil for a long time, was trying to get on top of an oil-covered log and just couldn't. Our captain pulled alongside of it and said, you know what, if you pull up alongside a sea turtle and it doesn't dart away, you know something's really wrong. We got a hold of it, brought it on board the boat, washed it off. Turtle got its energy back right away. Captain motored out a couple miles away from the slick itself, put the turtle back in the water, and it swam right off. I wish every bit of wildlife that was affected by the spill could be helped so easily.
What do you think is going to happen to that turtle, though? It's only a couple miles away from where the oil is, and the oil's still coming up.
Yeah, and you know, we don't know. We don't know how much oil is out in the water right now. We don't know where that oil is going to go, and we don't know what the impact is going to be.
Some of the people you talked to recalled other spills, and they know sort of where they fit in history and with these things. What'd you hear?
Heard from a doctor who'd been up at the Alaska spill. She was a marine toxicologist who had actually been running a fishing boat up there at the time. Talked about its economic impact, its environmental impact, and its social impact. You know, people don't think about how many marriages were ruined because their fishing business had been spoiled, how many suicides there were. You know, when we talk about the Exxon Valdez lawsuit, I think it's something like 25% of the participants that started that lawsuit back in 1980s didn't live to see the actual dispensing of the money at the end, because Exxon dragged that out for so long, took it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Some of the other sights and sounds you saw, things that struck you, what were they?
Just talking to the fishing boat captains, and they were in two distinct camps. Half said, you know what, I'm going to have to find a new career. The other half were in complete denial and were angry at the other fishing boat captains for taking people like me out to the spill. They wanted to pretend nothing was wrong and keep taking people fishing. People were bringing tuna back to the docks and cutting them up without knowing where those tuna had been or what they'd ingested.
All right, so here's the question that some might ask, and that is, okay, you're an environmentalist, you work for the National Wildlife Federation. Of course you're going to, you know, go out here and say this is a terrible thing. It is a terrible thing. Everybody agrees with that. But isn't this part, sad to say, of the risk that we just run in being part of a modern society, a 6.5 billion person planet, and we're going to have disasters from time to time, and we've got to mitigate them, we've got to manage them, but they're going to be part of the landscape.
Well, I certainly think America has made a choice that we are addicted to polluting fuels right now, not just oil. We talk about coal, talk about natural gas, talk about nuclear power. These are decisions that we made as a country. But those decisions have also been influenced by the amount of money that big oil is spending in Washington. Big oil had nearly 800 registered lobbyists in Washington last year. You wonder why we have some of these problems, why this particular platform had some of its environmental regulations waived. I look back at Washington.
And what do you think, from your own personal and professional perspective, should be done about deepwater drilling now?
Well,
it is one of the bright spots in our energy picture.
Right.
In terms of what it produces and what's out there.
Sure. I think we need to talk not only about making oil platforms safer, I think we need to talk about moving this country to a new energy platform. I don't think we can talk about oil drilling in isolation any more than we can talk about mountaintop removal in isolation. I think we need to talk about a national energy policy that's going to be cleaner, safer, and more economically viable for our children.
Miles Grant, National Wildlife Federation, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing your sights and sounds from being down at the Gulf.
Of course.
It's a good trip, and we're glad you made it. So, your thoughts on deepwater drilling, on the peril to the wildlife, on how this fits into our energy future. Join the conversation, weigh in with your videos or your comments at planetforward.org. And your little puppet thing there. What's your puppet?
Dirty the Sock Puppet.
Dirty?
He's a global warming denier.
Yeah, he's a global warming denier. Where did Dirty the Sock Puppet come from?
Well, National Wildlife Federation is trying to get online more, trying to reach new people, and we really wanted a way to speak to people who weren't sure about global warming in a way that didn't make them feel made fun of, but the people who were giving them information made fun of.
Whose idea was the sock puppet?
It was Bill Dion, our production manager, had the idea, and Max Greenberg is one of our communications assistant, and he sort of made Dirty his own, a little bit of mix of Woody Allen and Rush Limbaugh.
Woody Allen and Rush Limbaugh? That's a frightening thought, Miles.